everyone, and welcome back to CIG Television's live coverage of elections 2021. I'm Donna Bush. The polls have now closed after opening at 7 a.m. today for voters to cast their votes. With us in studio once again is the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell. Mr. Howell, of course, thank you for being back here with us. So what do the numbers look like as far as voter turnout?
So about 6 minutes ago, I did the official countdown to the close of the polls, reminded our staff that any voter who was within the 300-foot boundary were able to still cast their votes in the event that we had some people standing by. The last count we had as of 5 p.m., we had over 16,800 ballots cast across all 19 electoral districts. So now, as we speak, each of the electoral districts will be calling in their final numbers as of 6 p.m. And then they'll proceed to do their end-of-day procedures to seal up those boxes in front of the agents and prepare them to be transported to wherever they're going to be counted. In most cases, that's going to be at the same polling location, maybe in a separate room, sometimes in the same room as the polling.
Okay. Well, earlier we spoke about challenges that you may have had throughout the day at any of the polling stations. Has everything gone smoothly since our 3 p.m. update?
I haven't received any feedback other than, folks were able to go out. A very smooth, transparent process. I spoke to one of the workers here who left and went out and voted and came back, and it was a 3-minute exercise for her. So that was the feedback that I received from most persons.
Okay, well, you and your team seem to be building that track record of just getting people through there in a very smooth and orderly manner, and kudos to you and your team for that. So any final words to the Cayman public before we wrap up?
So we are on track to start counting at 7 p.m., and we look forward to delivering the results live on our website. As soon as a box is reported to us, we will update the stats with the number of ballots cast for each candidate within that particular box, and we'll continue doing that until all the boxes are counted, and we make a final declaration across all 19 electoral districts. So for some people, this is when the excitement begins. Right. For us, this is the next step in our process.
Just before we wrap up, though, just if we could give set up in people's mind a scenario who may not know what outside of a polling station would look like once the polls have closed and even when the count has started.
So the polls are open to any voter who's coming in to vote, and then they then leave after they've cast their vote. When the count starts, the number of persons that are able to be present at the count shrinks. The security is tighter for that, and they get down to the very serious business of counting those votes, which are done by hand. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to not being here until the wee hours of tomorrow morning. Right. In 2017, we were done by about 11:45. Right. I'm hoping for something similar, but I've stressed to all the team members, and we've trained for this. Take your time, do it right, make sure everybody's comfortable with the results as you go through declaring each ballot.
Okay, so you mentioned that security will be tighter, the numbers will dwindle. Who are those persons that are in that room?
So in that room will be the returning officer or a deputy returning officer. Okay. They can count together or separately. Mm-hmm. And by together, I mean they can take turns counting one box each, that sort of a thing. So for the most part, they will be counting separately. Okay. So 2 simultaneous count in different rooms. Mm-hmm. Our returning officers have 2 of our staff members as tally clerks. Mm-hmm. So they keep track of how each ballot is being called. Mm-hmm. We cannot count by ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we have to have candidates or agents present. And if they're not present, we need to go out and find 2 electors from that electoral district before we can start counting. Okay. That's usually not a problem because we always have the candidates and agents there for the count, because that's where the rubber meets the road. Right. So in addition to our staff and their tally clerks, each candidate can have two counting clerks. So in relation to those electoral districts that have 5 candidates, so that's 5 times 2, 10 plus our 3, 13 persons in that room. Okay. We have a field officer who reports that in, mm-hmm. and of course we have the police who give us the security to ensure that this process carries through in our normal, secure and efficient manner.
So you mentioned returning officer. For those who may be watching that don't know what a returning officer is, can you explain?
So a returning officer is a creature of our legislation. It's the person, and we have 19 of them. So the governor actually issues them with a writ which sets out the date of the election and the place for which the polling will be carried out. And the writ then has the returning officer returning to the governor the name of the candidate who's returned to office. So that's what the terminology is in the law for the person who wins the election. They're returned to that seat in Parliament.
Okay, so any final words again?
No, I just want to thank the public for the usual Cayman kind way of voting. We had some minor complaints, but for the most part, very calm, peaceful voting as we're accustomed to.
All right, Mr. Howell, thank you so much for being here with us. Of course, thank you to you and your team of how many hundreds of persons who've been able to carry out democracy here today in the Cayman Islands. Of course, we thank you, our viewers, for tuning in throughout the day. We invite you to join us at 7 p.m. when we'll be going live and taking the live feed from Radio Cayman as they go throughout the night. As always, I'm Donna Bush, and I thank you for joining us here.